All right, let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining Netcapital's live Q&A with Vantem Global. I'm Rob Burnett. I'll be emceeing today. The format's going to be, I'm going to ask a series of questions of Chris Anderson here from Vantem Global. At any point throughout the talk, any participants welcome to ask a question in the Q&A feature. I'll do my best to fit those in at kind of the appropriate moments throughout the webinar here. But yeah, definitely feel free to participate, ask your questions, get to know Vantem a little bit better. So with that, Chris, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Thanks everybody for taking time out of your schedule to learn about us.
So why don't we kick it off? Why don't you give us just a little overview of what Vantem Global is, what you do? Let's start there.
Great. Well, Vantem Global, we have an innovative construction system. It's a technology that reduces cost, time, and it increases energy efficiency. It's based on a proprietary structural insulated panel that we developed and tested over 5 years, gaining code approvals internationally. And it's our product. We launched it commercially in 2017 in the country of Uruguay, our first commercial launch that was very successful. And since then, we've been winning about 75% of the bids that we enter with our product. That's included a broad scope of applications, social homes, schools. We've won a bid for 23 schools, also a university campus. And so it's really being applied in a broad scope of applications.
That sounds great. I want to dive into your go-to-market strategy. Before we do that, can you talk to me a little bit about the team at Vantem? And who are the major players and what your backgrounds are and how you ended up in advanced construction materials?
Right. Well, as CEO, I grew up in Latin America and built a company in the wood products sector, in the construction sector related to wood products. We built it into a company with 2,000 employees, operations in 5 different countries, and shipping products across the globe. Much of the team that has come with us into this company came from that original enterprise. And it includes people that are very versed in construction, quality control, and in code approvals in construction. We've also brought on board key members of the team in the countries that we are beginning to operate in. Of course, the first one, as I mentioned, is Uruguay. We've got some very strong team members there that have a long history in construction and have really done a great job helping us roll the product out there.
Very cool. So let's dive into the problem you're trying to solve. You've got this advanced building material. What problem in the world are you trying to tackle?
Right. Well, the biggest problem that we saw that we're solving for is that worldwide construction is mainly done with brick and cement still. That's slow, it's expensive, and it doesn't really allow for the speed and cost needed to solve for some of the big problems in housing and social infrastructure. So what we sought to do was create a system that would allow us to reduce those costs, increase the time, and allow governments, allow private companies to increase the construction in those sectors primarily. The biggest challenge that most companies with alternative construction materials have is that they do not meet building codes and aren't culturally acceptable. So while solving for the basic problem of cost and time, we also set ourselves out a goal of solving for a product that would be able to meet code approvals and also be culturally acceptable. So it has to look and it has to feel like the structures that people are used to, like the brick structures, the cement structures. And our system does that. We're able to build schools, we're able to build homes that look and feel like the traditional structures people are used to in our target markets. And we're able to reduce the costs on average 25%, sometimes more, with a product that is up to 80% less time to implement. And with an added bonus of being 5 times more thermally efficient. So it provides structures that people are more comfortable in and have a lower cost of operating for heating and electrical bills.
That's really interesting. This seems like a good time to talk about, can we talk about the product itself for a little bit? Can you talk to me about kind of what it is, why it's better, and then go into a little bit of kind of why were you able to get code approval so quickly, and kind of what does it look like to make it so culturally acceptable?
Of course. Our product is based, our construction system is based on a structural insulated panel. Structural insulated panels have been used in the United States, somewhat in Japan, a little bit in Europe for almost 70 years. But those panels have been based on a wood skin. So structural insulated panels are typically made of 2 structural skins on the exterior and an insulation core on the interior. What we did was to substitute the exterior wood-based panel facing with a proprietary cement panel that we developed that has all of the structural benefits of a traditional wood-based OSB board, but it doesn't have the drawbacks that those boards have. Number one, they do not require additional cladding. So the board that we developed is weather resistant, and you can paint directly on it. So you don't have to put additional siding and other expensive and time-consuming materials on it. That's one of the ways that we save cost and time. The other innovative part about the panel is that this cement facing is a refractory cement. It's not your traditional cement that is used for construction. It's more of a ceramic formulation that we developed, and so it's refractory, meaning it's fire resistant, and that allows us to meet an important code in terms of fire resistance, and most countries do have fairly strong codes for that. The panels are relatively large. They're 30 square feet and relatively light. And so, for example, 2 people can lift one of these panels and install it 30 square feet at a time, making it a lot faster for the construction, and allowing for construction in complicated places without heavy equipment, further reducing the costs. By having a cement facing, finally, we have a facing and a surface that people are familiar with. Outside of the United States and parts of Europe, most countries do not build with wood. And so they're just not used to those as being materials that are used in construction. Our homes, our schools, once they're built, they look and they feel like the structures people are used to with these traditional materials. Yet again, they cost a lot less and they're a much faster to erect.
Great. And can you talk a little bit about where and how you produce these panels?
Yes. The panels are our logistical strategy is to produce the key component, which is the board, that facing that I mentioned. We produce that in China at a factory that we have an exclusive agreement with and an investment in. The factory produces these boards that we ship to the different locations where we have installations, and in those locations, such as Uruguay, we make the rest of the panel, meaning we adhere those facings to our structural insulated core, to manufacture the panel, and then we produce the home kit or the school kit, the building kit, which involves cutting these panels, cutting the doors, cutting the windows, and delivering to the customer a ready to install kit that has all the components, all of the electrical, all of the plumbing, the doors and the windows already ready for the final installation, so that it's a lot quicker once it's in the field.
Great. And let's dive a little bit into the market for the product. So you're starting in South America. Can you talk about kind of how big the market is, why you're starting in South America?
Right. Well, I mean, the market for a low-cost system is just huge globally. The global housing deficit is estimated to be $10 trillion. It's estimated that at least $200 billion worth of social homes alone will be built annually for the next 10 years. And we're not only competitive in social homes, as I mentioned before, we're very competitive in social infrastructure and other private type of installations like commercial and hospitality. So the market is tremendous. Our main challenge really is focusing ourselves on markets that we can grow in and digest in an organic fashion, not bite off more than we can chew. And we started in South America because it is a prime market, a market that I'm very familiar with, our team is very familiar with, a market that is very much brick and cement. Over 95% of construction in the region is done with those materials. And so we focused on Uruguay initially. We also have code approvals in Brazil, Chile, Bolivia. We're on our way for code approvals in Argentina and Colombia. And our strategy is to roll out a market at a time here in the medium term in an organic fashion. We do have significant opportunities that are outside of Latin America, which we do plan to get into. We've had strong interest in the United States, in North America. We've had strong interest from Africa and Asia. And they are markets we will focus on once we've entered and consolidated our position in these initial markets that we're so focused on currently.
That segues perfectly into we have our first two investor questions. So the first is more specific, the second is a little bit broader. But the first one from Diego is, could this be a good material for the reconstruction in Puerto Rico? And are you interested in doing business in Puerto Rico?
It is a great solution for reconstruction projects in general. We just completed 60 homes in Uruguay that are a flood relocation program there. We have had interest for Puerto Rico. One of the key things that we look for as a company focused on a double bottom line is that we need to see a clear line to funding. We do dive into projects where we see a clear funding source, not only the clear need, because the need is just so immense. And in Puerto Rico, we have had a couple of opportunities arise, but the clear funding, this probably gets into more detail than we might want to get into in this call, but the funding is not 100% confirmed yet, as many people know, in terms of the reconstruction budgets. But it would be a very good material once that is straightened out.
Great. And building on that, what are your plans to enter the U.S. market? This is a second investor question.
We've had a lot of interest from a variety of companies to work with us in the U.S. market and in Canada as well. Our product would compete extremely well, but I think as we're all aware of, the U.S. market is well, it's the world's largest market. And what our goal is to go, when we do enter the U.S. market, is to do so in a organized way that is well-funded, so that we can do it really well. And for the moment, we are holding back until we have digested a couple of our other markets where we're currently very focused in South America. In that time, we'll continue having conversations and negotiations with potential partners in the U.S. market, and hope to launch in the medium to long term in the U.S. once we're really, really ready.
Great. And that brings us to another kind of portion of this, and we actually have another investor question, and it ties in well. Can you talk to us a little bit about the business model? What's the cost of, a question from an investor is, what's the cost of building a social home using your system versus traditional systems? And how much did it cost to build the Brazilian home in your YouTube video?
Great questions. On average, our costs are 25% or more less than than traditional construction. So we usually provide a 25% or higher savings. In some countries, it's more. In the case of Brazil, the home that you see, without considering the land, the home costs about $12,000 to build, which was substantially lower than the local building costs. Actual costs vary, as everyone can probably appreciate, vary by country, by locale, depending on the local logistics and local conditions. But most of the social homes that we're able to produce are substantially less expensive than the homes that are manufactured traditionally with brick and cement. And the home in our video, as people saw, is installed in less than a week. Typically, that same installation would take several months using brick and cement in a country like Brazil. So that not only helps with the cost, but also helps with the delivery of larger scale projects that otherwise are really difficult to complete in timely fashion.
Building on that, the cost savings, that 25% cost savings you talk about, does that cost savings come mostly in the form of cheaper building materials, or saved labor costs, or some combination of the two, or something else?
It comes from a combination of everything. The material costs are lower. The largest savings is in heavy equipment that is typically needed, labor, and also overhead that you have for supervising a project for longer periods of time. So there's a combination of a variety of costs that lead you to that cost savings.
Great. And we've touched on this throughout the course of this interview, but can you talk about what your progress has been so far, kind of break down how far Vantem's come in the last couple of years, and what your next major milestones look like?
Right. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we spent the first 5 years of the company really investing in testing, investing in demonstration projects, and investing in obtaining these code approvals, which were really major milestones. As an example, in Uruguay, we are the lowest cost code approved system in the country. In Brazil, we are only one of 5 companies that has achieved a code approval with an alternative material. And we're the most cost effective there. In Chile, we have achieved code approvals in what is really a tough country because of the high seismic requirements, and where we perform very, very well. Our system not only performs well in earthquakes, but also in hurricanes. And so these code approvals were an important milestone for us. The next milestone was the commercial launch in Uruguay, which has really exceeded our expectations. We have now have a pipeline of bids that we have won or have a strong possibility of winning that exceed $25 million worth of orders for us potentially. And we are looking to consolidate those accomplishments with the installation of the next wave of important projects for us, which are 23 schools in Uruguay, which we will be doing this year and next year. There's a university campus that we will be installing this year and next year as well, and a number of social home projects that will be installed over the next 3 to 5 years that are already part of our pipeline. The following milestone is one that we are currently working on in terms of rolling out into our second country. We'll be announcing which country that is shortly, and we plan on continuing to roll out, as I mentioned earlier, 1 country per year for the next several years, and seek to launch in some of the larger countries, as we mentioned before, like the United States, in a medium to long-term horizon after that.
Great, and we have another investor question here asking, what will the use of funds from your current capital raise be?
From the current capital raise, 80% of the funds will be destined to basically working capital, inventory, work in process, and some receivables for the orders that we already have in our pipeline. 20% of the funding will be used for the installation of a new automated production line that we have purchased and for Uruguay. The line will be installed in May, and there are some funds that will be destined toward the actual installation of that line.
Great, and on a slightly different note, we've got another investor question asking, based upon your discussion about supplying kits, are you appealing to government contractors only, or are there private contractor customers as well?
Great question. We appeal to both. Our business model is one of working very closely with construction companies. We sell the kits to construction companies and work very closely with them on gaining government contracts and private contracts. So obviously schools are exclusively government contracts that we have been winning. Social homes typically are government private partnerships with components from both sectors in them. And we have built about 400,000 square feet worth of buildings in Uruguay that are purely private. They are commercial structures. They are private residences that some are kind of middle class homes, if you will. And we are now doing a small hotel as an example as well. So our system is being applied for both.
Great. And we're coming towards the end of our prepared questions and investor questions. So if any investors have any additional questions, please get them in now. But while we're waiting on that, Chris, can you talk to us a little bit about what you see as a potential exit for investors, over the long term?
Well, we haven't really decided on that yet, but we do feel that there will be interesting opportunities for exit. We are in the kind of at the crossroads of several important industries where typically you would expect to have buyout opportunities. Construction materials, obviously a large industry with large players. Energy efficiency, another industry with rapid growth, and important players that are in expansion mode. And obviously construction. There are a number of large construction companies that we feel would like to enter the high volume, low cost social government contract sector that currently are just not able to compete. So we feel pretty good about those opportunities once we get there.
Great, and we have another question follow-up in the chat here, asking, and I can help answer this from the Netcapital side, is do you have a cap table that would make me feel comfortable with the valuation and exit strategy for my shares if I invest?
Well, the valuation that we have is based on an internal discounted cash flow of our current pipeline and a fairly, I would say, conservative set of projections on our future sales over the next 5 years. That's the methodology that was used for the current valuation.
Great, and Michael, to answer your question, you can find information on the capital structure of Vantem Global in their offering statement, which is posted on Netcapital on their offering page. I can post a link to that in the chat here, and you're welcome to look at netcapital.com/company/Vantem. We have another question here from from a potential investor asking, can you discuss the patent situation? Are there any other players in this market that have the resources to duplicate your product or process in the near term?
That's another great question. We do have some patent applications revolving around the production methodology for the board that I mentioned that we use as the facing board for our structural insulated panels. Upon legal advice and kind of legal strategy, have not sought a patent on the actual formula of that panel of the cement, the special cement that we discussed, because essentially it just becomes a roadmap for somebody that would like to do a workaround. What we do is protect the formula and kind of like Coca-Cola, I guess, supposedly does, and do not divulge it. In terms of companies that we could compete with or they might want to enter the sector, it's always a possibility, but we really have a head start. It's not just a matter of money. Even perhaps a very large player would take 4, 5, 6 years to get to where we are. The body of testing takes time. Things like weatherability testing for this type of product is not something that's about money. It's about time and money. It takes a while to conclude those tests. And the bureaucratic processes for the code approvals that we've obtained are long. So we feel really that our protection is much more about those code approvals and about the progress that we've made on the testing side than anything. And again, those will be pretty tough for anybody to catch up with us anytime soon.
Great. And another question, again, from Michael, who asked about the cap table, asked, what exactly will he buy if he invests in Vantem, and how might he be able to sell his shares?
Well, you'll be buying shares in a company that has really a strong growth potential. I think hopefully you realize from kind of the numbers that we've been talking about The growth potential is huge. We're a company that has proven itself now. We're not a concept, we're a reality. Our market rollout has been successful, and we have a significant pipeline. So you're buying into that. You're buying into the projected growth that we have. And I believe in terms of monetizing or being able to resell your shares, Rob can probably speak to that better than I can. I think there's some plans at the Netcapital level that will make that possible.
Sure, and just from a mechanics standpoint, everyone who invests buys common stock in Vantem Global. You'll own those shares on the Netcapital platform. That's where they'll live. And then if Vantem exits, you'll receive your portion of the proceeds. Or Netcapital has a secondary transfer platform where any investor can put their shares up for sale, subject to certain restrictions around holding periods, et cetera. It's all built into our system. So any investor who feels like the company's doing well and wants to put their shares up for sale can do so. And then any of our companies that aren't currently doing a primary offering, any investor is welcome to bid on shares and purchase them from people who already own them. So it works to add liquidity to otherwise non-liquid assets. But we're coming towards the end of our time. If anyone has any final questions, please get them in now. Otherwise, Chris, at this point, is there anything else you'd like investors to know? Any final thoughts for us all?
Yes. Well, I just want to say again that we really are about the double bottom line. We're about making a healthy profit, but also about having a really positive impact on our world. And I hope that you will join us investing in our company and help us make that difference. And thanks again for your time and learning more about us today.
Great. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with us all, Chris. We appreciate it. Just so everyone knows, this video is being recorded and it will go up on the offering page in Vantem, and we'll also put it in Netcapital's weekly newsletter. If anyone has any additional questions, there's a discussion board on Vantem's offering page. Feel free to post any questions you have. And if anyone has any questions particular to Netcapital, you can reach out to us via our website, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Well, Chris, thanks again. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody.
Of course. Thanks, everybody, for attending. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.